Help us hit our first 1,000 subscribers. Your support drives us to create even more wonderful stories. Thanks for being part of our journey. In this video, I booked a surprise weekend getaway for my wife and me, but when I arrived at the hotel, she was already there, in someone else's arms. Daniel spent weeks meticulously planning the perfect surprise for their 5th wedding anniversary. He wanted everything to be flawless, to remind Emma how much he loved her and how much she meant to him. He booked a luxurious suite at the Brighton Hotel, the same place where they had spent their honeymoon night 5 years ago. He imagined every detail. The chilled champagne awaiting them in the room, the rose petals on the bed, the candlelit dinner reservations he had secretly made. Emma had seemed distant lately, caught up in work, but Daniel believed this romantic weekend would bring them back together. He smiled to himself as he double-checked the booking confirmation, picturing her expression when she realized what he had prepared. 2 days before their anniversary, Emma mentioned a sudden, urgent business trip that would take her out of town. Daniel had been disappointed but understanding, telling himself it would make his surprise even more meaningful when she returned. Still, a small knot of worry twisted in his gut, a feeling he quickly dismissed. The morning of the surprise, Daniel packed their bags, bought her favorite chocolates, and tucked a handwritten love letter inside her suitcase. He set off toward Brighton Hotel, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement, rehearsing what he would say when she walked through that door. He had no idea that when he got there, everything he believed about his marriage was about to shatter into pieces. Stay with us. The real shock is yet to come. You won't believe what Daniel finds at the hotel. Keep watching for the next chapter. It only gets crazier from here. See what happens in the next chapter. Daniel arrived at Brighton Hotel just before sunset, his heart pounding with excitement and nervous anticipation. He checked in at the front desk, trying to act casual while gripping the room key in his sweaty palm. The receptionist, a young woman with a forced smile, gave him a strange look, almost as if she knew something he didn't. He rode the elevator up to the 7th floor, rehearsing in his mind how he would surprise Emma when she opened the door. But as he turned the corner toward their suite, he suddenly froze. There, just a few doors down, he spotted Emma, laughing. She wasn't alone. She stood in the hallway, arms around a tall man Daniel had never seen before, her head resting lightly on his shoulder. Daniel's heart hammered so loudly, he thought they might hear it. At first, he thought maybe he was mistaken. Maybe it was someone who just looked like her. But then she tilted her head back, laughing in that familiar way he knew by heart, and Daniel's stomach twisted into a knot of dread. He ducked behind a corner, breathing heavily, his mind racing. Why was Emma here when she was supposed to be miles away on a business trip? And who was that man she was with? Daniel's first instinct was to rush over and confront them, but something stopped him. A gnawing feeling that if he waited just a little longer, he might uncover the full, ugly truth. He pulled out his phone and started recording, his hands trembling. Little did he know, what he was about to witness would break him far more than he could ever imagine. And what Daniel saw next will leave you stunned. Don't miss what's coming next. You won't believe how deep the betrayal goes. Find out everything in the next chapter. Daniel pressed his back against the wall, trying to steady his breath as he peeked around the corner again. He watched as Emma and the man entered a hotel room together, laughing like two teenagers sneaking away from the world. The door clicked shut behind them, leaving Daniel standing there, feeling like the floor had been ripped out from under him. His mind raced, battling between denial and rage. Maybe there was a logical explanation, he told himself, something innocent that would make sense if he just asked. But deep down, he knew better. Instead of knocking or confronting them immediately, Daniel made a snap decision. He would wait. He needed to know exactly what was happening behind that door. He needed proof. He moved down the hallway to a service closet he had noticed earlier. The door was slightly ajar, and inside, cleaning supplies were stacked haphazardly. He squeezed inside, positioning himself so he could see their room from the narrow slit between the door and the frame. Minutes dragged by like hours. At one point, he thought he heard giggling through the thin walls. His heart twisted with each sound, but he forced himself to stay put. Finally, he saw movement. The door opened again, and Emma stepped out, her hair slightly messy, her lipstick smudged. She looked back over her shoulder and laughed softly, whispering something to the man inside before closing the door again. Daniel's stomach churned. He had seen enough. Whatever illusions he had clung to were shattered completely, but instead of rushing in, something inside him said, not yet. He needed the full picture. Not just suspicions, but undeniable proof of betrayal, and what Daniel discovered next would make everything even worse. You won't want to miss what happens when Daniel finally decides to act. Stay tuned to the next chapter, because the real nightmare is just beginning. Daniel stumbled out of the service closet, his heart hammering against his ribs. He needed a moment to think, to breathe, to figure out his next move without doing something he might regret. Walking toward the elevator, he pulled out his phone, his hands trembling as he opened their shared cloud photo storage. Maybe, just maybe, there was something he had missed, a piece of evidence that could explain what was happening. He scrolled quickly through the albums, his stomach tightening with each swipe. That's when he found a new folder, one he hadn't noticed before, labeled with just a single heart emoji. Curiosity and dread battled inside him as he tapped it open. A series of photos popped up, pictures of Emma smiling, holding hands with the same man he had just seen at the hotel, in cafes, in parks, even at the beach. Daniel's mouth went dry. These weren't casual photos. They were intimate, filled with the kind of moments Daniel thought were reserved for the two of them. Worse yet, there were timestamps. Some of the photos had been taken during weekends when Emma had told Daniel she was working late or visiting her sick sister. Feeling the ground slip further away beneath him, Daniel noticed a video at the bottom of the folder. He hesitated for a moment, his thumb hovering over the play button. Then he clicked it. The video started innocently enough. Emma and the man laughing as they walked down a hallway. But then, clear as day, Emma turned to the camera and said, "I can't believe he still doesn't suspect anything." They both laughed, and the screen went black. Daniel froze, the phone slipping from his hand onto the hotel carpet. He stared into space, the echo of their laughter ringing in his ears. This wasn't just betrayal. It was mockery. His world, once full of love and trust, had been smashed into pieces in less than an hour. But a small flame of anger began to burn inside him, steady and fierce. Daniel realized he couldn't just walk away. Not after everything. He needed to confront her. He needed the truth, no matter how ugly it was, and what he planned next would change everything for both of them forever. The story is just getting started. You won't believe what Daniel does next to uncover the whole truth. Stay tuned for the next chapter, where the confrontation you've been waiting for finally begins. Daniel tightened his fists as he walked back toward the hotel hallway where he had last seen Emma disappear. He no longer cared about making a scene or keeping his emotions in check. He needed answers, and he was going to get them. He found the room, 503, and stood in front of the door, his heart pounding so loud he thought the whole hallway could hear it. For a moment, he hesitated, wondering if he was ready to see the woman he loved with another man. But the memory of the video, Emma mocking him with that stranger, gave him the strength he needed. Without knocking, he twisted the handle. To his surprise, the door wasn't even locked. It creaked open slightly, just enough for Daniel to peek inside. There they were. Emma and the man were sitting on the bed, their bodies close, their hands intertwined like they belonged to each other. They were laughing at something on Emma's phone, oblivious to the fact that their world was about to crash down. Daniel slammed the door open. Both Emma and the man jumped up, their faces draining of color. Emma's mouth fell open in shock, while the man instinctively stood between them as if to protect her. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" Emma stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Daniel could barely contain his rage. He held up his phone, showing her the video that had just shattered his heart. "Is this what you've been doing during your business trips, Emma?" he asked, his voice shaking with a dangerous calmness. The man next to her shifted uncomfortably, but Emma said nothing. The silence was louder than any words she could have spoken. When Emma finally tried to speak, Daniel cut her off. "I want the truth. Now." Emma glanced at the man beside her, as if begging for backup, but he just looked down at the floor. Daniel knew right then he wasn't just some fling. He was something more. The room felt like it was closing in, the air heavy with the weight of betrayal, Daniel demanded, "How long has this been going on?" Emma finally answered, her voice trembling, 6 months. Maybe more. The pain hit him like a physical blow. He stumbled back a step, struggling to breathe. He had shared a home, dreams, and a future with this woman. And for half a year, she had been living a lie. But even as the truth cut deep, Daniel sensed there was something else they were hiding. Something bigger. Something that could turn this nightmare into something even worse. Because when Emma finally looked him in the eye, she whispered a second, devastating confession. One that made Daniel's blood run cold. But what exactly did she reveal? You won't believe how deep this betrayal truly goes. Stay tuned for the next chapter, where the shocking second secret comes to light and the true scale of the deception is finally revealed. Daniel stared at Emma, struggling to believe what he had just heard. The words hung in the air like poison. "I am pregnant, and it is not yours." For a few seconds, the room spun around him, and he had to steady himself against the doorframe. Emma looked terrified, tears pooling in her eyes, but Daniel couldn't feel a shred of sympathy. Not after everything she had done. The man, who still hadn't said a single word, shifted nervously beside her, his guilt written all over his face. "You're telling me you're carrying his child?" Daniel asked, his voice breaking into something between a whisper and a growl. Emma nodded slowly, like a prisoner admitting to a crime she could no longer hide. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was the destruction of the life Daniel thought they were building together. The man, finally finding his voice, muttered, "It just happened, man. We didn't mean for it to go this far." Daniel snapped his head toward him. "You didn't mean to destroy a marriage? You didn't mean to lie every day for months?" Emma reached out toward Daniel, but he recoiled as if she had slapped him. "I was going to tell you," she whispered. I didn't know how." Daniel let out a dry, humorless laugh. "You didn't know how to tell me you were building a family with someone else?" The taste of betrayal was so bitter. He could hardly speak. The silence in the room was suffocating. Daniel knew that whatever bond had existed between him and Emma was completely shattered now. But deep inside, a darker thought crept into his mind. A suspicion he couldn't ignore. What if this wasn't the first time? What if there were even more secrets hidden beneath the surface? And more importantly, what was he going to do next? Because this wasn't just about a broken marriage anymore. It was about facing the truth and deciding whether he would let this betrayal define him, or destroy him. You won't believe what Daniel does next. Stay tuned for the next chapter, where a risky and shocking plan is set into motion that will turn everything upside down. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He sat in his car outside the hotel for hours, the events replaying in his mind like a broken film he couldn't shut off. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emma's trembling lips, heard the man's pathetic excuses, and felt the knife twist deeper into his heart. By morning, Daniel had made a decision. He wasn't going to just walk away and let them destroy his life without consequences. He needed to know everything: who the man was, how long the affair had been going on, and most of all, how deep the betrayal went. Daniel pulled out his phone and began digging through old emails, through texts, through Emma's social media accounts she thought he didn't check. The deeper he dug, the worse it got. Photos of secret dinners, weekend work trips that lined up a little too perfectly, text messages where they joked about lying to him, using him. Daniel's hands shook with anger, but he forced himself to stay calm. He needed a plan, not a meltdown. He decided to confront the man directly, but not with a fight, with something far more devastating. He was going to ruin both of them, the way they had ruined him. Daniel discovered that the man, whose name was Tyler, was actually engaged to another woman, a woman named Rachel, and she had no idea about Emma. A new idea took root in Daniel's mind. If they thought they could betray the people who loved them and walk away without consequences, they were about to learn just how wrong they were, because Daniel was no longer interested in just walking away. He was about to blow their entire lives apart. But how exactly would he do it? And could he handle the fallout? Don't miss the next chapter, where Daniel's risky plan takes a shocking and dangerous turn that no one will see coming. Daniel spent the next 24 hours meticulously crafting a plan that would leave no room for doubt and no chance of escape for Emma and Tyler. He knew the pain they had caused him would not be eased by a simple confrontation. He needed everyone to see them for who they truly were. Using a fake social media profile, Daniel contacted Rachel, Tyler's unsuspecting fiancée. He didn't come in guns blazing. Instead, he introduced himself cautiously, sharing small pieces of information. Photos, dates, subtle hints, leading her to connect the dots herself. Rachel's initial reaction was disbelief, but as Daniel carefully fed her undeniable evidence, her responses shifted from confusion to pure rage. By the time she asked to meet in person, Daniel knew he had her full attention. Meanwhile, Daniel booked a suite at the same hotel where he had caught Emma and Tyler together. He sent invitations, posing as a hotel manager, offering a free romantic getaway. 4 couples who had stayed there recently, Emma and Tyler, blinded by their arrogance and the lure of luxury, eagerly accepted the offer without suspecting a thing. Daniel also invited Rachel, telling her exactly where and when to come. He orchestrated the setup so that Rachel would walk into the suite at the perfect moment. Catching Emma and Tyler mid-celebration, completely off guard, every detail had to be perfect. Every second needed to be timed. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about exposing the truth in a way no one could deny or forget. But as Daniel finalized the final steps of his plan, a sliver of doubt crept in. Was he prepared for what would happen when the truth exploded out into the open? Would he still recognize himself after all of this was over? No matter what, there was no turning back now, and what happened next would change all of their lives forever. Keep watching. In the next chapter, the trap is set, and the moment of ultimate betrayal shatters everything. The night arrived faster than Daniel expected, and with it came a cocktail of adrenaline and dread surging through his veins. He was already seated in a dark corner of the suite, hidden behind thick curtains, a small camera in his hand, ready to capture every moment. His heart pounded so hard he could barely hear anything else. At exactly 7 p.m., Emma and Tyler walked into the suite, laughing and carrying a bottle of champagne. They didn't suspect a thing. They thought it was a lucky break, a free romantic night to celebrate their secret love. Watching them so comfortable and smug made Daniel's blood boil, but he forced himself to stay calm. Minutes later, Rachel entered the hallway outside. Daniel had sent her a message with exact instructions. Wait 5 minutes after they entered, then come in, and just like clockwork, Rachel opened the door quietly and stepped inside, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Emma and Tyler froze when they saw her. The champagne bottle slipped from Tyler's hand and shattered on the ground. Rachel stood there, holding up her phone, which was already recording, capturing the perfect scene. Their guilty faces, their panic, their betrayal laid bare. What the hell is this? Rachel's voice cracked through the room like a whip. Emma stammered, trying to find words. Tyler stepped forward, hands raised. But there was nothing they could say that would fix this. And that's when Daniel revealed himself. He stepped out from the shadows, recording everything, his camera flashing as he captured their horrified expressions. Emma's face turned ghost white. She tried to run toward him, but Daniel backed away, keeping the lens firmly focused on her. "This is who you really are," Daniel said coldly, his voice steady despite the hurricane of emotions tearing him apart inside. "You betrayed not just me, but everyone who trusted you." Rachel turned to Daniel with fire in her eyes. "Let us ruin them," she whispered, her voice trembling with rage. But just when Daniel thought he had complete control of the situation, Tyler did something that changed everything. He smirked, a slow, confident smirk that made Daniel's stomach drop. "You really think you're the victim here?" Tyler said, his voice dripping with venom. Daniel's heart raced faster. There was something he didn't know, something about to explode in his face. And what Tyler revealed next would flip everything Daniel thought he knew upside down. Don't miss what happens next. In the next chapter, the devastating final truth is revealed, and it will leave you questioning everything. Daniel stood frozen as Tyler's smirk widened, the air between them thick with tension. Tyler reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and tossed it onto the coffee table. A video started playing automatically, and what Daniel saw made his blood run cold. It was a recording from months ago, a video of Daniel, drunk, disoriented, stumbling into a hotel room with another woman, a woman he barely even remembered meeting. Tyler's voice cut through the suffocating silence. "You think Emma betrayed you first?" He sneered. "You cheated on her long before she ever met me." Daniel's knees buckled, and he dropped into a chair, staring at the screen in disbelief. Memories he had buried deep came rushing back like a tidal wave. Too fast, too chaotic to stop. Emma stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "You lied to me first," she said, her voice breaking. "I tried to forgive you, Daniel. I tried to pretend it didn't happen, but you never even told me the truth." Rachel stood by the door, completely stunned, her phone slowly lowering as the reality of the situation set in. The perfect revenge video they had planned was now pointless. Daniel wasn't just the victim, he was part of the problem. Daniel opened his mouth, searching for the right words, but nothing came out. There was no excuse good enough, no apology big enough. Tyler picked up his jacket and walked toward the door, throwing one last glance over his shoulder. "This mess? You created it," he said coldly before disappearing into the hallway. Emma wiped her tears, gave Daniel one final, heart-wrenching look, and followed Tyler out the door without a word, leaving Daniel alone in the shattered remains of the life he thought he understood. The silence that filled the room was deafening. Daniel sat there, broken, replaying every decision that had led to this moment. Every lie, every betrayal, every mischance to fix what was already cracked. He wasn't the hero of the story. He wasn't even the victim. He was just a man who destroyed the one thing that truly mattered, and realized it only when it was far too late. And now, he would have to live with that for the rest of his life. Thank you for following this intense journey. Would you have forgiven Daniel if you were in Emma's place? Let's talk about it in the comments.